Hi, we are standing here on the beach at Harvester Island in Alaska, and I'm here with Scot McKnight, and he's been with us for about a week now. We've had a spiritual retreat here on the island, and I just wanted to take this opportunity, Scot, to ask you a really important question, and that is, I want to ask you about the church, the American church today, and we all have lots of concerns about the church, and we see lots of needs. But as you look at the American church today, what is your greatest concern? What do you see is the greatest need in the church right now?
Well, we probably would want to spread out our wings and say there's a lot of needs,
Yeah.
but I'll focus on one.
Okay.
I've seen a trend in my lifetime that I call now skinny jeans kingdom theory. You're doing okay.
I'm checking my jeans.
I'm wearing cargos
Okay.
just to stay safe. What has happened, I've seen a dramatic shift in my lifetime. I grew up in American fundamentalism and evangelicalism, where the primary mission of the church was to evangelize its city and to send missionaries into the world with the gospel to evangelize people, bring them to Christ, and build churches. Somewhere as a result of the 1980s, American evangelicals became much more politically active. To the point today...
The moral majority,
Moral
probably
majority.
Started in the 70s, I think.
Yes, yeah. But under Reagan, it flourished. And as a result of that, an increasing number of evangelical Christians, unbeknownst, I believe, to themselves, became convinced that the best way to change the world was through government power, and through public action and activism. Whereas today, in American evangelicalism, you can go to Christian colleges and it will be rare that you will discover someone who wants to be a missionary. And if they want to be a missionary, the almost inevitable kind of missionary work they want to do is to work with the poor like Mother Teresa. And it is becoming increasingly rare for people to want to be evangelists or church planters. My point is this about I use this expression about skinny jeans kingdom theory, is that it's characteristic of the young generation to want to pursue social justice. And social justice has become the instinct of evangelicals rather than evangelism and church planting and focusing on the church. George Barna did that study about radical Christians, and they had very little commitment to their local churches, but he saw them as white-hot Christians. I don't know how someone can be a white-hot Christian and not be committed to a local church. God's design in this world is to build his people through the body of Christ that takes place in local communities, in local churches. So I'm deeply concerned about the lack of commitment in the youngest generation in the church today to the church and to evangelism to build the church. I fear that in 30 years, churches will be collapsing, and the people who are now what I call skinny jeans types, they will be saying, what's happened to the churches?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's an irony there in that this generation believes very firmly in community. That's a really important word, community and Christian community, but somehow that doesn't seem to translate to the church, to the larger church. And I think one issue is that young people love other communities of young people, of people just like them. But the church is not. The church is a diverse body, multi-generational.
And I would say they like community, but what they really like is friendship. Community is a recognition. I call this in one of my books, it's a fellowship of difference. Whereas I say the sort of instinct that we hear about young generation liking community is a fellowship of the sames. And I'm concerned about that because a community of difference is really hard. It's much easier to love people who are like us.
It's the rugged commitment.
Yes.
And that's what makes it rugged, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because we have all these differences.
And it's not patronizing in doing things for others. It's not benevolence. It is building relationship across generations with people who are sometimes like us and sometimes not. But we're drawn together because we're the body of Christ. And by golly, you know, when we're not with the ones we like, you know, we're with one another. And that's who we got. And this is a big theme in one of the greatest books of the 20th century by Dietrich Bonhoeffer on life together. We must slay the idealisms of what we think the church should be and learn to live with the church as it is.
The church that is, and the church that is right there in your neighborhood.
That's right.
Made up of
We'd
your-
rather have a church that looks like summer church camp, where we had great experiences, and we come back home and there are old people struggling and people fussing about the color of hymn books and which music we should be singing and sermons we don't particularly like. Well, I cannot imagine that the first century churches had good sermons. These people didn't know what they were talking about. They're just growing in their faith.
And they're doing it together.
And I'm committed to learning to love the people that God has brought us together with. And that's why love is so important, because we need love when we're with people we don't like. And that's the church.
That's true. That's so true. Good. Thank you. Thanks for that
Yeah.
good word, Scott. And thanks for being with us. Whew.